Hi everyone, welcome to the This Is My Ride podcast series brought to you by Argon 18. My name is Craig Alexander, I'm your host today. I'm a former world champion triathlete and also an Argon 18 ambassador. I've been riding their bikes for 6 or 7 years now. Obviously as a triathlete, my main ride is the E119 Tri Plus disc, but also have a Galleon Pro disc for the road and been mixing it up a little bit lately and getting off-road. So I've got a dark matter cross bike, which is a lot of fun. But anyway, on to business. Today's my lucky day because I get the absolute pleasure of interviewing an amazing lady. She's just flat out awesome. She's a wife, a mother, an author, an advocate for development, and also a record-setting world champion triathlete who was unbeaten throughout her career over the Ironman distance. She won a lot of races, most notably the Ironman World Championships in Hawaii 4 times, and still holds the record for the fastest female time ever over the Ironman distance, an incredible time of 8 hours and 18 minutes, which she set in Germany at Challenge Roth a decade ago, which is remarkable when you consider all the advancements in technology of bicycles and running shoes that record still stands to this day. Of course, I'm talking about the amazing Chrissie Wellington. Chrissie, how are you?
Oh, it's such an honour to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the very kind introduction. Very humbling. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to join me. We go back a long way, so this conversation could start anywhere, but I thought there's no time like the present. Let's work backwards. Let's start in 2021. I'm interested to find out what your life looks like now. Why don't we start with parkrun? I know you do a lot of work with parkrun, and that's your day job, so to speak, these days. So why don't you tell us about your role with parkrun?
Yeah, I guess we rewind the clock back a little to my retirement. I think just to set the context for where I am today, and I stepped away from triathlon. It's a decade ago now. I can hardly believe that, having the race I always dreamed of, the race that completed me. Maybe we can go into that.
Yeah.
And I knew at that point that it was time to retire for many reasons. I think deep down I felt that although I was winning, I wasn't growing. There was no room to grow as a person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And anyway, I transitioned away from the sport into the unknown. You lose your identity, your structure, your single-minded focus on a goal. You question who you are and what your purpose is. And for me, there was a very strange void after I transitioned away from professional sport, which was admittedly quite scary. And that I underwent a long process of introspection, Crowie, and just thinking about who I was, what mattered to me, where my passions lay, what type of environment I wanted to work with, what type of lifestyle I and we with my boyfriend then, now husband Tom, what life we wanted to lead. And life is a bunch of serendipitous encounters, isn't it? And I came into contact with the founder of Parkrun, Paul Sinton Hewitt. I was explaining to him that I wanted to potentially set up a charity that encouraged children to be more active. I didn't really have a clear idea about what that might be, but that was the kind of concept. And he said, well, we have an established series of free weekly 5K events. But what we want to do is roll out the junior parkrun series of events. Would you come on board to do that? And that was in 2013. So I came on board with Parkrun to establish the junior parkrun series. So they're 3 weekly 2K events for 4 to 14-year-olds. And I basically formalized it, established the kind of strategic underpinnings for that series, and my role has since evolved. And now my role is as global head of health and well-being. So wow. I am so fortunate that, in a nutshell, I get to develop interventions to engage those that are less active in our events. As we know, it's so easy, Crowie, to get people that are active a little bit more active, or segue them into different sports, but it's really difficult to instigate behavior change and encourage those that haven't been active or have lapsed into inactivity to be more active. So that's my role. Prior to Esme coming along, I worked 5 days a week and now work 3 days a week with Parkrun, which gives me time to do my other things.
Awesome. And Parkrun started in the UK. How many events do they have globally now? Because it's spread like wildfire all over the world.
Yeah, it's established by Paul Sinton Hewitt in 2004. There are now around 2,200 events around the world, including in your home country, Australia. I think there are 370 odd. So there's over 700 5K events in the UK, over 300 junior events, and then in 24 countries around the world. So every weekend prior to COVID, obviously, about 330,000 people.
Wow.
Well, every Saturday. We've got 6 million people registered with Parkrun. And in the UK, about 170,000 people every week. The UK comprises about 60% of our participation. But like you said, it's growing kind of exponentially in other countries too.
It's so good. The Alexanders, we turn up to the odd park run en masse, and it's good. It's such a good thing to do as a family. Neri and I love to get down there. So, and that's sort of right in your wheelhouse, because even before triathlon, you were working in policy writing in government, weren't you? So it's sort of your passion was development and international development, and I guess transitioning into developing programs to keep kids active is a passion for you.
It always has been, Crowie, and I maybe see triathlon as a little interlude in my kind of lifelong passion for development, driving positive change, whatever you want to call it. But triathlon gave me that incredible platform, like we've both spoken about so often. For me, it was so much more than simply a race. It was an opportunity to create a platform and a channel for me to verbalize what I wanted, and then afterwards, obviously, it gives you a public profile, and you can do without what you want. And you can be a spokesperson for a whole range of things, whether it's sponsors, and partners like Argon, or whether it's causes, charities that you care about. So I think having that public profile, obviously a double-edged sword sometimes, but for me, it's a fantastic opportunity to do something, that I wanted outside of, pure sport.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I mean, like you say, it does give you the platform, and you can do with it what you will. So I'm interested to ask you about the children's books that you've written, and how did that come about? No doubt, maybe from countless hours of reading Esme bedtime stories, but what sort of, I guess, led to the children's books?
Oh yeah, thank you for asking. I think the past year has been challenging for so many different people. I think again, we've been forced into introspection, and a lot of us have questioned how we want to live our life and what type of life we want to lead, and we've spent a lot of time at home, and I think not being able to maybe have other challenges in my life, maybe sporting goals or whatever. I was seeking maybe a different challenge, and I love writing. I love all types of writing, whether it's journal articles or my book, or even academic papers. So I really enjoy writing, and I've always toyed with the idea of writing a children's book. And I was introduced to a friend of a friend called Susie, who had developed a mindfulness program and had the concept of the children's books based on these 7 simple steps to improve, your life. And so we started working on children's books. So it was a real collaboration. And for someone, I mean, you'll appreciate this, you're used to participating in a very individual sport. Obviously you have your team is incredibly important, and it's a team effort, but collaborating on a book project was really challenging. There's a lot of concessions and backwards and forwards, and discussions, and I really enjoyed the process. So in a nutshell, they're children's wellbeing books, and they seek to empower and encourage and inspire children and the adults that read them. They're based on children interacting with nature. So one is a child talking to a flower, and the other is a brother and sister talking to a tree. And the tree and the flower impart various life lessons, whether it's doing your best, overcoming failure, being active, learning to breathe deeply, appreciating your uniqueness and your difference. So all of those important messages that we try to impart to our children, and we wanted to do so through the medium of a book.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, those of us who are parents and read bedtime stories to the kids. I mean, you have your favorite bedtime stories that even my oldest, Lucy, who's nearly 16, we talk about love you to the moon and back and those sorts of things. I think those messages that you share with your kids when they're very young, they stay with you for a lifetime. So, yeah, that's a great idea. I mean,
Sorry, for Susie, because Susie has two mixed race children, and for her, she wanted to create a book where the characters would resonate with her children. So they're deliberately illustrated in black and white, and
nice.
also you see the children's faces, which kind of expands maybe makes them more inclusive, and also means that the children use their creativity because they can identify with the children, because you don't actually see their faces or the color of their skin or the color of the clothes that they're wearing, etc. So that was really important facet of the book. But yeah, you're right. Being a parent has made me realize how incredibly important and powerful these books are. And some of them are absolutely shocking. Some of them are incredibly good, and you can use them to impart the messages that you may not be able to do directly to your kids.
So, well, you are no stranger to writing books, because, of course, you wrote A Life Without Limits nearly 10 years ago as well. Was that 2012? Is that right?
Yeah, I wrote it, actually. I started writing it in 2010. I'd broken my wrist, and kind of the blessings in disguise. There's always that silver lining, isn't there? But I had a bit more time, so I started writing this book, and was writing it through the course of 2010 and 11. Obviously, needed to create a happy ending, so I had to win the race. 2011 to sign the book off in style, but it was published in 2012.
Probably needs a few more chapters now with everything else you've got going on. You could write some supplemental chapters to go in the back.
I'd like to do that, because I think when you reflect back on your career, you see it very differently.
Yeah.
Maybe do rose-tinted spectacles, but I think you start to look at who you are as a person, how you achieved what you did, what motivated you, all of those things that maybe you don't actually think about when you're in the heat of battle, as it were. Once the dust has settled, I think then you start to process you as an athlete, and who you were, and maybe who you are now. So yeah, I'd love to write some more chapters. I don't know if they'd be as interesting.
I don't know. They sound pretty interesting.
Reader as maybe my life in triathlon, but it's certainly quite a cathartic process. Writing, really enjoyable.
So, of course, you're married to Tom, who himself in his own right was a world-class athlete, and you've got little beautiful Esme now. I'm just curious, obviously Esme's going to get some great athletic genes. Is she showing any tendencies of sport, or is she more creative, into music, dance? I mean, I'm always fascinated. Of course, I get asked the same questions about my children. Are they going into sport? And I think there's that genetic, the nature part of it, but there's also the environment as well. I mean, I noticed with my oldest daughter, she grew up, she was old enough to see what daddy was doing, but maybe the younger ones not so. So maybe they didn't have that environmental impact. I'm just wondering with Esme, what she likes to get up to.
I remember meeting Lucy at Ironman Australia in 2008, and I couldn't believe it when you just said she's 16. You know, obviously I see pictures occasionally, but yeah, it's amazing to think she's nearly an adult,
Oh
isn't she?
yeah. Oh, she thinks she already is.
Probably already is, and probably running faster than we ever did at 16 or 26, probably. Esme is her own person, and she will be what she will be, and that's incredibly important to us as parents, in that you can expose your children to various environments and different opportunities, but she needs to pursue her own path, and we facilitate that as far as we possibly can. She's an interesting mix, actually. She loves to read, she loves to draw.
That's good.
She's now starting to write, so quite creative, quite imaginative in terms of, you know, her writing and her drawing. But she is very physical. Um, um, Much to Tom and I's frustration, shows very little enthusiasm for riding the bike. And I'm trying not to be that pushy parent, Crowie, and be like, "Look at Mummy, look at Daddy, we go out on our bikes most days." And she's like, "No, I do not want to ride my bike." So she's not showing a lot of enthusiasm for two wheels at the moment. But she loves to run. She loves to bounce on the trampoline, and do various kind of gymnastic feats. So she's very physical, as you might imagine. Those that know my husband, he's 6'5", I'm 5'10", so sorry, 5'8". So she's quite tall. She's quite strong for her age. So she's got that kind of physical presence. She loves to climb, and that was a sad thing about the last year, is that a lot of the rock climbing walls around closed down, and so she hasn't been able to do a lot of kind of indoor rock climbing, but we have some kind of outdoor places around here that we take her scrambling and swimming, where, you know, that's kind of a non-negotiable for us. She was in the pool from 4 weeks old and has been every week since then, COVID aside. So she loves to swim. She's very confident in the water, and for us, that's a life skill.
Yeah.
Or not she pursues it as a competitive sport doesn't really matter, but I think being able to swim is really important, especially if you want to take up triathlon. I mean, trying to do triathlon and learning to swim in your 20s is really tough. So I'm going to set her up for a life of triathlon possibilities by learning to swim at an early age. But no, I mean, I don't need to tell you, Crowie, but she's taught us as much as we can ever teach her. But especially for me, you know, just slowing down a little bit, just slowing down, being present, being less selfish. All of those really important character traits that I just don't think I displayed when, you know, when I was an athlete, and some of which, you know, I look back and I think I wish I'd been a little less self-absorbed and a little less obsessed, but at least now I can rectify that and try and be that present parent. And that's why I think I would really struggle, and that's no judgment for those that combine professional sport, whether male or female, with having a family, but I think I personally would find it too hard, because I was such an all-encompassing, self-absorbed athlete, and I struggle to think how I could have managed.
You know, it sounds like you got a good balance, though, because sometimes being in balance means being self-absorbed and all-encompassing when you need to be, and then at other times in your life, the focus shifts elsewhere. So you mentioned getting out and riding. I'm interested. I know you ran the Comrades Marathon, and I follow you on social media, so I was following your transition back into long runs, and I also read, though, that you still get out and ride a little bit. Is that right?
Yeah, Crowie, I think when I retired, I found it initially quite hard to compete, because I didn't want to be compared to the athlete that I was. I found that very hard. So I did a lot of kind of challenges, so endurance events, but in like, non-tangible in terms of like kind of position or finish time. So some of them were kind of self-designed, personal challenges. Others I did with friends or some sportives and things like that. So, and then I decided I wanted to kind of, I don't know, challenge myself again and enter the London Marathon and set a goal of sub 250. That was after Esme was born. So it gave me that focus, I think, after she was born. And so I started running, but I think quite rapidly, didn't become disillusioned, but I realized that for me, the appeal didn't lie in road racing anymore. Maybe because I just knew I would never be as fast as I used to be. It hurt a little bit more. And I think I just wanted to try something different that challenged me in a different way. And I've always been really quite atrocious at off-road running. I'm a bit of a liability and I trip over my own feet. And so I decided to try off-road running. So for me, that was a big challenge. I'm not very good at running downhill. I'm still not, but I'm getting a little better. But just running off-road, and I guess that led me into ultra marathons. And on the back of having fitness in the marathon, I did a few. Then I decided to do Comrades, which kindly said I ran Comrades. It was kind of a run-walk strategy. Wasn't particularly pretty. I enjoyed it, and it was humbling. And I really suffered. I really suffered, principally with GI issues, but I really suffered, and I'm kind of proud to have finished. But I think it made me realise that I didn't want to do a lot more road running. So after that, I did some more ultras. So prior to COVID, I did a couple and really, really enjoyed them. Really enjoyed them. I think partly because you haven't got your eye on a split time, on a watch, on a position, really. You're just out there, and it's the journey, it's the adventure, it's the challenge. So I was really enjoying that. So still running off road, but not as long as I was when I was training for those. So I'll probably run an hour a day. And then I go out on the bike. Over the winter, I don't really ride, get on the turbo a bit, but now the weather's much better here in the UK. I'm starting to get out, but still for me, a long ride is like 2.5 hours. I don't know why I may get going soft, or maybe I'm maturing, but my idea of a long ride is 2.5 hours, and that's me. That's done. That hurts a bit, and then I can come home and get on with the rest of my day. I'm enjoying going out on the bike. I don't have any metrics. I don't have time, pace, anything. I just enjoy. I enjoy riding, and always have, and always will do, but in a different way.
Well, it is kind of freeing when you don't have to hit benchmarks in terms of time or distance or speed, and you can just be out there and smelling the roses, so to speak. So I've sort of done a bit of off-road riding just for something different, because I enjoy cycling, but it's different to what we used to do. So interesting, and that enthusiasm's there. But I want to transition to racing. You talked about the 2011 race, and we'll get to that. I'm kind of jealous because you said you felt it was the perfect race, and I think every athlete aspires to that. It's a nice way to put an exclamation point on things. But I mean, 10 years removed from your career, what do you miss about, I guess, being a full-time focused professional athlete with specific goals, and what don't you miss? I mean, what is it something that you just look back on fondly and think, it had its time and its place, but I don't miss it?
I miss the pursuit of excellence in a single endeavor. that single-minded pursuit of excellence, and to see how good you can be, and how deep you can dig when the chips are down. And I think that's what I miss. Um, but that's also what the sport gave me. So I feel really privileged to have achieved that. But I think other athletes will disagree, and I understand that. I think the pursuit of a perfect race is, I don't know, it's ephemeral. I don't think you can ever have the perfect race. We're not that type of people. So for me, it was perfect in a different way. So not because everything went perfectly, but maybe precisely because it didn't. But yeah, I crossed that finish line knowing that I that was all I could give, or that was me. Um, and that battle within me, that battle with others, the psychological battle prior, during, and I felt liberated when I crossed the finish line in a way that I don't that I just felt now I've proven what I'm capable of. And I think if I reflect back on that race, Craig, that for many years I raced very fearful of failure. I was really scared, and you know me well enough to know that. I don't think I've spoken about it, if at all, but I was very scared of failure. And for the first time, I raced thinking I was going to lose. Like the first race I ever did, the Ironman career, and the first World Championships, I didn't think I was going to win that, of course. But once you've won once, you believe you can win again. The race in 2011 was the first race that I competed in that I thought that I wouldn't win. So in 2007, I raced Ironman career and the World Championships, and I didn't think I could win either of those. But then subsequent to that, once you've won, you believe that winning is possible. And I became increasingly fearful of failure. And it was a significant change in me as an athlete to be accepting that I would race the World Championships and not even potentially not win. I just didn't believe that I could. And so to do that race and then to win that race completed me. And I knew then that I was enough. And there's an inevitability to professional sport, isn't there? That we know that, you know, it's time bound. But for me, it wasn't about living the lifestyle, because no one could live the lifestyle that I led for a long period of time, because it would crush you. So it wasn't about the lifestyle. It was about, for me, that personal challenge of seeing how good I could be. And I answered the question, and it completed me. And I guess I knew I was, at that point, that I was worthy of being called world champion. I think it was, I proved something to myself that maybe I hadn't in the previous championship races.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because it sounds like your journey went full circle and came to a sort of a natural conclusion. I think every athlete has those doubts. You hear people talk about the imposter syndrome, or even when you win, you don't think you're worthy of winning, and you wonder if it was luck and can you do it again. But it sounds like you got to a nice place where you started. Obviously, in 2007, you were just brand new. I mean, it was your first year racing as a professional. So, but to win that, then there is expectation. But I think the journey. It sounds like you got to a really a good place where you were just, you'd scratch the itch. And I think every athlete, well, I know I can't speak for any other athlete, but you're envious when you hear that, because, we're all on a journey as a professional athlete and even in life, but to get to that place where you feel like you've accomplished what you set out to do and you've grown as a person, it's changed you for the better. And I mean, my question was going to be, what were the major lessons that you learned? But it sounds like that was one of them, just a self-awareness and growth as a person. What other lessons do you feel, very thankful to the sport that, I guess, it delivered you those lessons?
Yeah, definitely a self-awareness about myself, and my capabilities, and that, they obviously weren't where I thought, and that I could achieve more than I ever thought when I went into the sport, albeit in a different discipline, because I wanted to be an Olympic distance athlete and simply wasn't good enough. But could achieve more than I ever thought in a distance I could never imagine being able to perform at. So it gave me that knowledge that I was capable of so much more than I gave myself credit for. It gave me the gift of relationships, in a way that I could never have imagined going into a very individual sport, and the ability to convene a wonderful group of people around you. It sounds narcissistic, but you can convene a group of people around you in a way that you're unable to do in many other aspects of life. Maybe a way, but bringing people together. And my friends, my relationships, my family were deepened and strengthened through triathlon. Relationships with sponsors, with people you'd meet in Kona that have become lifelong friends, or my host family in Challenge Raw. Just the relationships, and that's the gift that sport gave me. And I feel really fortunate to have had that, because that's the enduring legacy, isn't it? Your records go and you fade into the distance, and you're replaced by someone new, and that's the beauty of sport. Those other things are the aspects of sport that really stay around. And especially stay with me. So I think those are the gifts that sport gave me.
Awesome. I think that's a great place for us to wrap up. Some good lessons in there for everyone. And just interesting. I've always found you very interesting. You're multi-layered as a person, and I mean, not too many people come into the sport. Obviously, no one comes into the sport and has the record that you had so quickly, but just bringing what you brought with your background and all those other things. So yeah, it's been a great chat. I really feel I got the questions and the answers that people find really interesting. So I think that's a great place for us to wrap up. I really thank you for taking the time to join us with everything you've got going on. It's great to chat, actually, great just to reconnect, because you and I really only see each other in Kona or some of the big events. So, thanks. Say hi to Tom for us.
And likewise.
Give Esme a big hug. I want to send a shout out to Argon 18 for organising this chat. If anyone is out there listening, thank you. Thank you for those who have listened. And if you're interested in hearing more of the Argon 18 podcasts or seeing what else they've been up to, maybe give them a follow on their socials. But thanks for listening today, and thank you to our wonderful guest, Chrissie Wellington. Take care.
Thank you.